what part of the situation sucks? And all of it sucks.
First kiss, first handhold, first movie, first. The bride was warned.
The bride's needs takes priority. F off to everyone else who's grieving on that day.
Are we disagreeing for the first time on the podcast? Thanks for tuning in to Honey Hearts. I'm Sandra.
And I'm V.
Let's get into today's story.
Ooh.
So sometimes it's hard to determine whether or not you should have a tough conversation. Sometimes the truth just hurts. What do you do when you are the one who has to deliver that? It's not always easy. It's not always well received. Today's story, we explore a mom who is giving her daughter tough love with the truth.
Oh.
So before we start the story, I just want to add that there is mentions of loved ones who passed away due to a car accident. So just a warning for those of you who do not want to listen to this topic. Today's story is from subreddit Am I the A-hole? Am I the a-hole telling my daughter she has to understand that choosing this wedding date would result in my family not going? 2 years ago, my brother, my nephew, my mother were in a car accident. My mother died instantly. My brother and nephew passed away the next day. My family was small: me, my husband, daughter, parents, brother, wife, and 2 nephews. Their loss was devastating for my life and for everyone, even worse for my father and sister-in-law. 1 year ago, my daughter, Betty, 25 female, was proposed by her fiancé and preparations began. During this process, they chose the date based on the day they met, added 7 years ago, and that day is exactly 2 years since the death of my brother and nephew. I tried to talk to her about moving because it is still a very difficult date for our family and even for myself, but she insisted, saying that the venue had the date available and it would be perfect because all the other available dates aren't so good and wouldn't be so important. I respected her decision. Recently, she sent the invitations to everyone, and as I predicted, my sister-in-law, my nephew, 24 male, and my father responded that they would not attend, and despite not telling her, my father and sister-in-law told me that the date choice was sound an offense to them. I decided to remain neutral. I confirmed my presence. Today, my daughter called me unhappy that no one but us confirmed. My husband doesn't have family on his side, and her family part was empty, and she expected everyone to go on that date. Even more so after she explained the reason to them about the date, but they still refused. I tried to be supportive, but I said, quote, "Love, this date is difficult even for me, but I will go to your wedding. But you have to understand that this choice of date had this consequence, and you would have to deal with the consequences of your choices." She exploded at me, saying that everyone was against her. It's not her fault the dates coincided, and everyone could make an effort to go a few hours for her, but they decided to just not go, and I was basically saying, quote, "I told you so." She hung up without me answering, and we still haven't spoken. My husband said he understands me, but I should have stayed away from it. Am I the a-hole?
So just so I'm not missing anything, what is the relationship between the daughter, the bride-to-be, and the person that passed? Are they cousins or?
So this is OP's daughter is getting married, and the ones that passed were OP's brother, nephew, and mother. So this would be the bride's uncle, cousin, and grandmother.
Okay. I can kind of see 2 sides of it. I think it's a horrible situation. The question shouldn't be, am I the a-hole, or is OP the a-hole, or the bride the a-hole? The question should be, how, like, what part of the situation sucks? And all of it sucks. On one hand, I feel like, hot take here. On one hand, I understand, immediate family, that date is very sensitive to the family. And it probably is super sensitive to the bride as well, considering it's immediate family, and even to OP, obviously. But on the other hand, you guys are going to hate me for saying this. On the other hand, I think, look, the date means a lot to the bride. And the bride suffered loss too, right? Those were her direct family members. And, she wants to celebrate on that day. She's choosing to remember that day in a more positive way. And she wants her wedding to be that way, that day. And I think, of course, it's within her rights to have that day. But I also do understand that for the family members, it is their choice to not go. I think it would be lovely if they wanted to spend a few hours with her to celebrate her. But at the same time, I don't think that she could possibly hold it against them either for feeling really sensitive about that date. Because it's, you're not just losing one family member, you're losing, it was a big event that happened to the entire family. And clearly it's still something that, that they're struggling with. So I see both sides. Like I support the bride in having the wedding, whatever date that she feels comfortable with. Look, she doesn't want to remember as that horrific event. She wants to remember that date as, this is going to be my wedding. This is a day that me and my fiance met. I see that. But I also see the family members' choices to not go.
The bride has full autonomy on like whatever venue date she wants to book. It's booked, right? And the couple has decided on that date. The date is important to the couple. And they sent the invitations out and they're not getting a lot of positive responses from her side of the family, but it shouldn't come off as a surprise. The couple has the choice to pick the date. The family members also has the choice to attend or not attend, and you can't really force people to feel comfortable with the date. People deal with grief like in totally different ways. Maybe the daughter is dealing it with let's celebrate instead and like make the date a positive date from here on out while still remembering the loved ones that passed. But maybe the other family members are not there yet. They're not ready to let go of the tragedy that happened upon their family. They're not ready to move on. And you just can't force it. And I think the couple should be understanding of that. They can have their date, but just be understanding and considerate of how the rest of the family is feeling. You can't really control how they are dealing with the grief.
I'll be honest, I'm glad that OP, the bride's mom, is going at least. Because...
And husband, yeah.
And the parents, like the bride's parents are going. I think those are obviously the most, usually the most closest to the bride, most important family members to go. I at least she has someone going. I just hope that the family isn't going to be holding this against the bride, because I don't think that would be a very fair consequence if they hold resentment that, hey, you excluded me from the wedding because you chose this date knowing that I was really sensitive to the family. So I hope they don't see it that way either.
There's no point in trying to change how others are going to feel about it. I don't think she should have exploded on the moms. I don't think everyone is trying to be against you by not attending your wedding. I think, yes, it sucks for sure, but it's not unexpected. It's not a surprise.
I think one point that I can definitely feel frustration, like emphasize with, have empathy with for the bride, is that I don't know, how I view it is because obviously I've had family members, pass in my family and, even close or intimate ones. And I just feel like I don't necessarily agree with, is this date potentially blacklisted forever? I think I would encourage, I'll be honest, I would encourage the family members to think in a sense of, look, would your past family members really feel that they passed on and this is how you're choosing to remember this day? I don't know that that's the best way to honor your family members that are passed on. And I know this is a super sensitive topic. This is just speaking to what I would do. I feel like I would have gone to the wedding. More so because that date is something that is so significantly tragic. I would have wanted it to represent something different for the family. And to celebrate that, look, we've had this tragedy, but we're coming together and we are still remembering those that passed, but let's also celebrate those that are still living. So I feel part of the bride's frustration, and had I been a family member, I would go. Not that I'm, all of a sudden happy on that day, but it's just, I think they're two different things. And it's not that one needs to exist without the other, if that makes sense. Like you can be happy for the bride and celebrate her on that day, but also, hold those memories and hold your loved ones in loving memory and fondness.
I wonder if, for weddings, you can have a section of your wedding dedicated to the memory of loved ones that passed that couldn't join you there today. I wonder if the bride was planning to have a section like that. And if she did, maybe she could have explained that to the family members and maybe they could attend. It's a way of doing both, remembering the loved ones and celebrating a marriage. There's different ways you can go about it. But do you agree? So OP's husband said that he understands OP, but that OP should have stayed away from it. Do you think that OP, the bride's mom, should not have told her, this date is difficult even for me, but I will go to your wedding. But you have to understand that this choice of date has its consequences and you have to deal with the consequences.
I think if the bride is already thinking that everyone is against her at this point, I think it does add a little bit of oil to the fire, so to speak. I don't know. I feel I'm coming out with a lot of potential controversial takes here with this. I think it should have been both ways. I think the family members should have approached the bride on a one-on-one perspective and said, hey, we might not go or we're not going just because we're still dealing with these things and it's really difficult for us on this date. And have that conversation with OP. Because what I worry is that it seems like they're talking about the situation to others other than, not OP, to the bride. They're talking to OP, the bride's mom. They're talking to other people. But honestly, if you care about the bride at this point and you really want it to move forward and not hurt the bride or come to a sense of, balance, talk to the bride. Have an honest conversation about it. Because otherwise it's going to feel like, so everyone is saying they're just all not going to go to my wedding.
At least like in the RSVP, there might be a section to add a note. You could wish the couple congratulations and explain to them how you are feeling about the date. And just maybe if it's not just coming from one person, but coming from many, the bride will see where their heart is at the time. Just like how we hope that your heart is with Honey Hearts Podcast. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. Please, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. Click, and we always appreciate your support. So first comment says, not the a-hole. I mean, you told her exactly why this would happen and she didn't listen. I think she was more upset in front of you than at you, if that makes sense. She's venting, but also kind of thoughtless to think that everyone would just swallow their grief to watch her get married on a really painful anniversary. And reply says, yep, daughter made her choice. She gets to pick the date she wants. Her family gets to pick whether they go. So I think that's very fair. Everybody gets to make their own choices.
Yeah, it's a situation sucks, but kind of is what it is.
Oh, one interesting reply to that. So a reply says, imagine being at that wedding. If the affected families did come, everyone would be talking about how strong they are for showing up. All the focus would be on them, and the guests who didn't know would be so confused until they learn. I imagine many of them would side with the family members instead of the beloved bride. If she wants to be the focal point of her wedding, them not attending is the best possible outcome if she keeps the date.
I think that's a fair point, actually.
I think it's kind of inevitable that it's going to come up, for sure. It's going to be like at the forefront of their mind, and it's just going to come out naturally in conversation. You can't really control that. So unless like I said earlier, there's a dedicated space for in memory of loved ones, then that would be an appropriate situation where they can talk about this date while celebrating at the same time. But if you're not going to acknowledge the other significance of the date, then I think that's where the couple would be the a-hole.
Yeah. I think, okay, that provides a lot more perspective. I think then it is best case scenario for those affected to not go and those that are dealing with it to not go. You don't want that to cloud your day or cloud that moment for the bride and groom.
Commenter says, not the a-hole. I don't think you were saying, quote, I told you so, but you told her what would happen and it happened. So I told you so would be totally valid. There are 365 days in a year. She could have picked a day where her family isn't grieving. So that could be a hot take. What do you think?
See, Be nice to me, guys, okay? This is just my personal opinion on this. It's not that I think the bride should get whatever she wants. I'm approaching it from the idea that I think the bride's needs takes priority for her own day.
Ooh, interesting.
I think it does. I think the bride's needs take priority on her own day. Yes. I mean that in a sense, not that I think she should just say, F off to everyone else who's grieving on that day. It's not that. I just think, look, this day means something different to her personally. So I don't think she should be held to the same restriction as her entire family. Yes, there are consequences. So I agree her family should have a choice. But I'm standing strong with the bride on choosing whatever day she wants.
I think at the end of the day, everybody made their decisions and they just have to move along, like whatever outcome those decisions led to. I think everybody just has to move along. And just like everyone, just the opposite. So I'm going to say the opposite. I don't know if anyone will agree, but there are other days they could have chosen. I'm pretty sure this is not the only significant date in their relationship. I think they could have chosen a different date that did not affect the grieving. But, at the same time, it's their choice. It's what's done is done. I'm not saying that anyone should change their decision, but there were alternatives. That's my take.
The bride prioritized her, I guess, the date that she met her fiance over the family grief thing, which I think is within her right. I'm a bride defender here. But I also see your point. Yeah, she could have picked a different date.
She could have. There's so many other dates to pick. Like, this was like first meeting, first date. There could also be like first kiss, first handhold, first movie, first, first flowers, first Valentine's.
But see, okay, question. If this is 2 years after the event, right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean no family events will ever be welcomed in the whole household for eternity?
No, I don't think so. I think they're just saying it's still too fresh. 2 years is a long time, but it's also not that long, especially for such a tragedy. Like, if to the other family members it's still fresh, it's still fresh. And, and the bride was warned. She was warned. So,
yeah.
I mean, yes, she's free to choose that date, but she shouldn't be surprised about the consequence. And if she didn't want that to happen, if she wanted more family there, she could have chosen another date. And
That's true.
Your wedding date will become a special date.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, bride made her choice. So now I feel like...
Are we disagreeing for the first time on the podcast?
I think so.
Oh, no.
Well, it's hard because I'm team bride, but I'm team family, but I'm also team bride. Like, I want the bride to be happy. I want the family to also be happy. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's my take too. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree that it is what it is.
So debate to disagree or agree.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what Redditors are saying. Redditors are saying not the a-ho.
I don't think OP was a-hole. No. I feel like we start like zoning in more on the bride and the family, but OP is not the a-hole. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, I would even say no one's really the a-ho. Everybody just has their feelings and focus in different parts of the situation. What do you guys think that the focus should be on? If you were the bride, would you have picked a different date? And if you were OP, would you have had that conversation with your daughter? Or would you have just stayed quiet and just attended the wedding? Please let us know in the comments below what you think.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it with a friend if you want to share the story, and hit the bell for notifications. And best of all, if you're listening to us on Spotify, don't forget to give us 5 stars. See you guys.
See ya. And
bye.
Subscribe. We're trying to get to 500.
Yes, 500.
Bye.
Bye.